Are we live?
Looks
I'm
like
checking. I'm
it.
checking YouTube.
Okay.
Oh yes. All right. Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining. Today is episode two, actually, of season two. So season one used to be when this was live, and now I moved it into online. So yeah, this is episode two, and I'm excited for today. So thank you for joining. I'm really looking forward to talking to Alexia about this important topic and to learn more about her journey. So before we jump into it, let me just quickly introduce myself and introduce this video cast. So my name is Ferris. Um, I'm a quiet confidence coach. What that means in simple terms, I'm a life coach that coaches introverts to understand themselves, embrace who they are, and leverage their natural traits and in all aspects of life. I've been doing this for 6 years now. And before that, I used to be in the corporate world doing multiple things under communications. So, so yeah, that's me. And the video cast, Quiet Confidence Cafe, is a live event where I invite people that I met throughout my life and journey that I connected with them. I liked their quiet confidence traits and we clicked and aligned on values. And most importantly, I see a value of them sharing their experience with the community here. So that's how this was born. Uh, what else I want to say about that? So of course, yeah, each session will be with a different guest speaker, and every guest speaker will have a different topic to chat about. Logistics, please feel free to add your comments and ask your questions in the chat box. We'd love to hear from you. We will leave towards the end 10 minutes for answering all the questions that we can within that time frame. If we don't manage to answer all the questions, please reach out to us afterwards directly by email or DM us, and we will answer your question. All right. In today's episode, as you all know, we have here health and wellness coach Alexia. Alexia and I met a few years ago, and we spoke a few times, and I really appreciate what she does. So a bit about Alexia, and I'll leave more for her to share. But from my end, what I know about Alexia, she has over 20 years of experience as an educator in variety of settings, working with both adults and children. She currently works part-time as a cardiac nurse and patient educator, in the Heart Center at St. Paul's Hospital here in Vancouver. She is passionate about supporting people to make small, sustainable changes that over time lead to optimal health and well-being in every aspect of their lives. Wow, that's awesome. I love the small, sustainable steps. Alexia has her own health coaching practice, and she is the founder of Strong Healthy Kids. Wow, impressive portfolio, Alexia.
Thanks, Ferris.
All right, everyone, grab your coffee for me, for you, your drink of choice, and let's jump into it. Hello, Alexia.
Hi, Ferris. Thanks for having me today.
Thank you for joining. I'm curious. My first question to you is to tell us, or tell. I'm curious to know more about you, more than what I shared in the bio. Um, who is Alexia?
Yeah, I think Alexia is always changing and evolving and
Mhm,
growing, and really, in many ways, just coming back to who I was as a child and figuring
mhm,
that out again. I think we often know who we are as children, especially if we grow up in a safe environment where we feel loved and have the freedom to kind of explore what it means to be us.
mhm,
But as we grow and are influenced by multiple um, sources or events in our lives, we can often lose that deep connection of
mhm,
just that sense of knowing who we are and what we need to be healthy, to be well, and to feel like we're thriving. So I'm on that journey along with everybody else. And I hope that in sharing that a little bit today, you'll be able to find yourselves in my story, and that the things that have made a significant impact in my life over time might make an impact in yours as well.
Awesome. I love that regarding how, yeah, we are born with all these like creativity and all like limitless things, and then yeah, through time we like culture and all these limiting beliefs comes on us. And I know that's a different story, but I really resonate with that, and it's great that we do this kind of work to unlayer and peel these layers and go to our essence in different aspects, and maybe in this context more health and well-being.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I'll also just quickly add, I am a parent. It's one of the greatest joys in my life. My daughter is truly been a gift and a teacher, and I continue to learn from her and heal as I grow in that journey. And so that's a big part of my life. But I grew up on a hobby farm with a love for the outdoors. I was a free-range kid and independent in a lot of ways from a very young age. And that childhood experience, as for all of us, has really shaped who I am and what I love. But I do have a deep love for health and wellness and for the outdoors, and also for community. So I'm working on that part of my life.
I can tell from your Instagram post, beautiful outdoors and nature almost on a daily basis. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's my sacred space.
Wow.
Yeah.
You inspire me sometimes and remind me to go outdoors.
Thanks. Good.
Yeah, good. Exactly. My second question to you, and I never asked you this before, and I'm curious to hear it now. What's your definition of quiet confidence?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot this week in preparation for our conversation, and just sitting with what that means. And I think a lot of it is, as I alluded to before, is knowing who we are, knowing our strengths, our perceived weaknesses, which often actually aren't our weaknesses. We've just framed them as that, but they're still a part of who we are and what makes us unique. I think it comes with, knowing what we need, and recognizing that that's important and it's okay to have those needs, but then also figuring out how to live in alignment with the things that we value, the things that are important. So, do our lives reflect the things that are our true priorities, or are we constantly pushing those away in order to do what we feel like we're supposed to do or need to do in order to be successful or to find a sense of belonging? And that sort of abandonment of who we are, or living out of alignment and not taking care of ourselves, I think it takes a toll on our confidence. And I know that that's been a long journey for me. There's a lot of my adult life when I didn't feel confident and I didn't really know who I was anymore. And yeah, it requires compassion. It requires humility and just an openness and a curiosity, I think, to keep moving forward when there's setbacks. Two of the words that have been coming to me this week around that idea of confidence is really adaptability and resilience. And those are so connected to our mental, social, and spiritual health. And often when we think about being healthy and well and feeling confident, we think about our physical health, the way that we look, the way that we feel in our body. But so much of it is about how we talk to ourselves, how we see the world, how we respond when things happen, or react when things happen that we hadn't anticipated, or don't turn out the way that we'd hoped for, those kinds of things. And that's where adaptability and resilience is key. And I think we start to, as we can learn to trust ourselves and see that we have the capacity to do hard things and to change course when we need to, or try something in a new way, we start to to over time build confidence. And it's not a static state, right? It comes and goes. We might feel really confident in our professional lives, and then we move into a new job and suddenly that's shaken. And so having true quiet confidence, I think, comes back to those really foundational things of knowing who we are, knowing that we have value to offer, by truly owning who we are and living from a place of strength, but also, recognizing that it's so much more than the external things. It's so much more than what we do. It's really who we are and how we show up. And so I could keep going, but that's my
Wow,
answer.
no, it's beautiful. I was thinking in my head, oh, I wish I had a notepad, and because you said, like, I didn't expect that amount of depth, and I resonated with so much you said, and I feel like we could, like, I could easily now go into that path and forget the topic of
Right.
health and wellness, because it's awesome. Oh my God, you said so many things. Like, I love what you said about adaptability, resilience. I love what you said about it's continuous work in progress. And I also appreciate what you said about confidence. Yeah, it's from the inside, it's not from the outside, and depends on the context. A person can be confident, but then, like I said, example of changing jobs, that person might be not confident in that area in the beginning, but doesn't mean that person is not confident overall. So there's so many layers, and like I said, it's not static, ongoing. So thank you for sharing that. I'm glad it's recorded. I can listen to it again.
Yeah.
All right. Could you tell us about how did you like your journey in terms of health and wellness? Like, how was your journey leading up to that, and and more about that.
Yeah, I think my story will reflect a little bit more about my thoughts around adaptability and resilience, because I really did grow up feeling quite confident and feeling like I knew who I was, and I felt that sense of purpose. I felt a sense of belonging for most of my childhood and adolescence. Obviously, in adolescence, there's some, insecurities and working out what that means. But I really entered into adulthood feeling like I had confidence and had a sense of that. And I had a lot of ease in my life in terms, and I recognize that now as we're having these conversations around privilege, and as I've started to understand what children really need to thrive, I realized I had a lot of those things. And so I do acknowledge that. But what was interesting was the first time in my adult life that I really encountered challenge, or what I perceived as failure, was when I was 23. And I was the youngest teacher on the staff at the school where I was teaching. And although I was relatively new, an opportunity came up for an interim academic director position. And so I was approached to take this position on an interim basis until they found somebody to fill the position. And I ended up getting fired from that job. And it wasn't because I had done anything wrong, which for me, I didn't know anyone who'd been fired. You hear of people, these things happen to, and it really was just external circumstances, and that I didn't have the mentorship that I needed. I didn't have the skills that I needed. But to me, I was so ashamed. I felt this deep sense of failure. Of course, I reacted. Not of course, I did react. And I really went to a place of blame. And my personality as an introvert, when I feel vulnerable, is to withdraw. And so I did that on a large scale. So I withdrew from my social community, not necessarily physically, but certainly emotionally. And so that was my way of protecting myself and keeping myself safe. But I started to develop some new patterns in terms of the way that I saw myself and the stories that I told myself about who I was. And I started to really integrate those stories into my life. And when we integrate our the way that we talk to ourselves and the stories that we tell ourselves over an extended period of time, because I had withdrawn socially from the people who knew me and loved me, and that sense of support, you really start to believe them and embody them. And you start to become those things, right? And so I stopped taking risks professionally. I didn't meet people. It felt so uncomfortable to actually get to know people. So I had lots of friendly acquaintances and colleagues and that kind of thing, but I really didn't make any new friends for almost 10 years in my life. And that makes me so sad now when I think about how rich my life has become as I've healed and started to regain that confidence and knowing of who I am and my worth, regardless of what I do. So anyway, that was the defining moment. And I really allowed it to define me by the way that I reacted to it. And so jump forward 6 years later, I found out that I was pregnant. I was about to embark on a career change, which was the first significant risk that I'd taken, certainly in my professional life in a long time. And the timing felt terrible. It felt like inconvenient, right? But like I mentioned earlier, my daughter really is like, she was a beautiful gift and the perfect interruption that I needed in my life, because when I found out I was having a girl, it was like, oh, wow, like I am not who I want to be as a woman, as a mother. And that, like, wow, I needed something to shift me. And so, that was a big turning point in my life. But it's like anything, right? That I could have seen that as an excuse to not continue to pursue my dreams and not take risks. But I really used it as the fuel to do the work that I needed to do. And so it was a long, slow journey. And it started so when I'm coaching people and working with people around health and wellness, whether it's a corporate wellness talk or a workshop for parents, or whether I'm working with adults and children together or kids, it doesn't matter. The foundation of health and well-being is the same. And so I use this framework for everybody, and I love it because it's just adaptable, and I have used it in my own life. And like, depending on our age, our stage of life, our values, the way that different limitations or perceived limitations that we have, which can also be opportunities, are at any different time in our life. It's adaptable. And so for me, my journey really started with my physical health, which was the one area that was going pretty well. So from the outside, it looked like I ate really well, and I was really active and that kind of thing. But then my daughter showed up, and my life stage changed, my job changed, my circumstances changed, my schedule changed, everything changed, and I didn't know how to adapt. So I had this desire within me, but I kept trying to go back to the way that those things had worked for me before I had a child, before I was working as a nurse, and I couldn't figure it out. And so, quite honestly, for 5 years, in that postpartum period for me, I found it really challenging, but I eventually started to figure it out, and it worked only because I stopped trying to change everything at once. I stopped trying to go back to the way that it had worked in a previous part of my life. And I started to make one small sustainable change at a time. And as I started to do that, I started to feel better in my body, first of all, physically, which is so important. So when I start with people, we often start with that because we all eat, we all move, we all sleep, and we all have stress. And how well we manage it or don't manage it really affects all of those other aspects. So I call those the 4 pillars of physical health. But we start there and just look at, okay, where is the easiest place to start? Because most people are like, oh, I need to go to the gym and I need to go 5 days a week and I need to be there for 40 minutes. It's like, do you like the gym? They're like, no, I hate it. And it's like, okay, well, this is not sustainable. Do you have 40 minutes every day? No. right? And then we feel disappointed. We feel like we don't have the capacity to do it. And so I had to start so small, and it felt ridiculously small. And I almost wondered if I would even see or feel any change. Like I was such a skeptic at that point. But I started by changing some things with my nutrition. And then I started to move my body again. But I literally gave myself permission to do like 10 minutes every day, even though in my mind that wasn't enough. That was the story that was running. I had another story running that I wasn't a morning person. Well, no, that's actually just because I'm not a person that functions well when I'm tired. And so I had to shift my bedtime routine and improve my sleep, and then start exercising in the morning, even for 10 minutes. But like that consistency created momentum, right? It creates a ripple effect. And then I felt like I had the energy and a little bit more confidence to start to do the harder work, which for me was addressing my mindset, was starting to build a community again, and to reconnect with my spiritual health and my spiritual practices, which was something that I had really abandoned. And so, yeah, it's been a trial and error process. I've tried some new practices and habits, and I realized, you know what, this works for them. It's not for me. But that openness and curiosity to just experiment with things and to find what works. And so I think that's a big thing. It's like comparison is the thief of joy, right? So what works if I give you my recipe for health and wellness for me, it's not going to resonate with you, all of it anyway. There might be aspects. And so, I don't know. I think I'll pause the story there, but I just want to be really honest and open, like that, you know, the way that I live my life now and the health and the sense of well-being that I experience now, it has been work. It's been a journey, and it's not always been this way, because lots of people are like, oh, you run every day. And I'm like, no, I don't. It's easy to make assumptions based on what we see on the outside or what we see on our Instagram feeds and that kind of thing, and think that, oh, well, it's easy for her, but it hasn't been easy. It's still not easy. There's still a lot of deep work, and as you know, there's lots of layers, more layers, and there's always opportunities for growth. But it's so much easier in community, in healthy community.
Definitely with people. I learned that from Maria Forleo. She talked about instead of saying like-minded people, say growth-minded people. So having growth-minded community really makes a difference. And thank you for sharing your story and opening up. Really appreciate it. And you said, so many golden nuggets. What stood out for me, compassion for yourself through the process. And I really resonate with what you said about how when your daughter was born, it's a gift and changed you and helped you become adaptable and resilient. And I feel I'm going through this now because my son is 2 years old. So, and I totally relate. The first year was super tough because maybe I didn't adapt as I should be, or because adaptation is key. Now I see it, and the resilience. And now the second year, it's been fun, and of course difficult, but fun as well because of the two things you mentioned: adaptability and resiliency. And let go of control, not control of my son, but control of how things unfold. Because anyway, no one can control. It's an illusion that we think we can control all that. And I also like what you said about
COVID. This time in our lives.
Exactly.
Suddenly adaptability and resilience is like integral, right?
Yeah, and reframing, like you said, like taking this as an example, the COVID thing, actually the big part of that adaptability and resilience and reframing things probably was one of the benefits of COVID, at least for me, that gave me the opportunity to spend all day with my son, and that shifted things. So that was a blessing in disguise. You said so much, which I wanted to go into, but I'll go to the next one. Next question I'm curious about. Oh yeah, I loved what you said about small sustainable steps. That really resonated with me because like you said, we get so excited and we want to go to the extreme. So like we never exercise, then suddenly next day we want to go to the gym and do this and do that, and yeah, and then we get overwhelmed. And maybe I should use I because I don't want to assume others. I do that, and then when I get overwhelmed, say, okay, I'm not going to do that. Especially when it comes to physical.
The story in our head, right? All those scripts that run that really show up to, I don't know, keep us in our comfort zone.
Exactly. Almost like excuses to justify our thoughts and behaviors. And I like what you said about starting with what is easier for you. Sometimes you try to start with the most difficult to challenge ourselves, even without maybe consciously deciding that, but we go for the hard one. But it seems your way of doing things, it's more attainable, more reasonable and realistic, and probably, I'm assuming, it will have a bigger impact and sustainable impact.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
and because it creates that momentum, it creates the ripple effect, and it creates the confidence that we do have the ability to figure things out, that we can be successful, that we can do little things to move us in the direction that we want to go towards becoming who we want to be ultimately, and feeling the way that we want to feel, right? Because that's actually what we're motivated by, is feeling.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's another conversation.
Yeah. I'm curious. Okay, looking at the time, so I'm thinking two more questions. One, what's in your opinion the link to health, wellness, and confidence? Like how they all connect to each other, and how does it affect confidence in general? Maybe you alluded to that before, but anything you'd like to add on that? And if not, I can go to the next one.
Okay. Just one thing that is coming to mind is when we look at this idea of health and wellness, being physical, mental, social, emotional, and spiritual, if any one of those four pillars is off balance, it's like a table, right? Like a table will be strong and steady if it's a solid foundation. And so I think of those four pillars in that way. And when we avoid or neglect, or one of those aspects makes us feel uncomfortable, or feels especially challenging for us, and we're not open to kind of exploring it, then I don't think we have that true sense of health and well-being. And ultimately that sense of wholeness. And to me, that is confidence. Like they're so interconnected, that, like, when I think of, our physicality, for example, it's so much about how we feel in our body. And with our mental health and our mental well-being, it's that sense of growth, of creativity, of learning that makes us, feel alive. And with our social emotional health, it's about that sense of belonging and synergy and contribution, and feeling like, recognizing that interconnectedness, that we need other people and they need us. And then in terms of our spiritual health, that like alignment with our values and what's important to us, and a sense of purpose, that we have something to offer, just simply by being in this world and living our lives. And I think without any one of those things, we don't really experience that true sense of confidence, that internal sense of confidence. Like all of those things, it's not that we're in isolation, but it's not really about what we do or what we have. It's about who we are and how we exist in our body, with others, and with something greater than ourselves. So I think I'll stop there.
Love it. It totally makes sense, and makes sense to me. It's a direct reflection to the confidence, and especially when we talk about quiet confidence, and when we talk about internal confidence, because maybe other people view confidence differently, where some say, for example, fake it till you make it. So from the outside, you might seem confident, but it doesn't mean necessarily from the inside. But this approach is starting from inside out, which I resonate with. And And these four aspects are key. I totally get it. I don't know if you knew that about me. 7 years ago, I did a wellness counselor certification, which usually I don't talk about because my focus is coaching. But the program was divided into these two. So I understand, divided into these four. So I totally understand how they're all integral: spiritual, mental, physical, emotional. And if there's one is not working, or it's not working, it's not at an optimal level, it affects everything.
Yeah.
And especially the physical, which maybe because that's not my area. Usually I start with the mental. Maybe that's my strongest. And lately, I started realizing, I spoke to you about it, that I realized there's a lot of potential for me to work on my physical, not the appearance, but I mean the physical, eating right and sleeping right and all the physical aspects. Because, like you said, if we have that physical, it affects, of course, the mental and other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a book I read, I forgot who are the authors. They talk about the importance of energy. I know that it seems simple, but they say managing energy is the key to personal renewal. Like if you don't, like you said, you were thinking you're not a morning person, then you realize it's because you were not maybe eating right or sleeping enough. You're not a morning person, but that doesn't mean you're not. It's just taking care of your physical self.
Yeah.
All right. My last question on this is, what's your approach when you work with clients, like tangible steps? Like how would you work with a client if they come to you and ask you, all right, I need help. What's your process like?
Yeah, I think we always sort of start with an assessment. So figuring out what's the baseline, where are we at? And honestly, just that process is about increasing our awareness and being honest with ourselves, right? Not from a place of like, oh, I need to fix this. But really just like, hey, where are things at? And an awareness around the things that are already going well, right? Sometimes we get so focused on the things that we should be doing, or I have to do, or I need to do, or, and we're just, we don't acknowledge like all the good things that we are doing, the things that are going well. And so by starting from that place, I think it helps. And then shifting to like, okay, so what's the direction that you want to go in? How do you want to be? And how do you want to feel? Just articulating that, because often we get so caught up on like direction wise, where we're going in terms of like our career or things we want to accomplish, right? All those external things, but we get lost about who we want to be in the process. And, sometimes not even recognizing that maybe that direction that we're headed in is when you look at where your current health and well-being and way of existing is actually taking you, is not in alignment with that. And so I think that's really the starting point. And then peeling back to like, why is it that you want to feel that way or be that way? Or because for me, like I mentioned, I had wanted to make some changes in my life, but to do it for myself, because my self-worth was so low, I didn't feel motivated to do it. And so I just existed that way for a long time. But all of a sudden I had this little being who was going to be looking up to me and learning from me and the way that I live my life. Wow, that was fire to make some changes, right? So that was my why. So even when I when I would try to be active again, and it felt horrible because I'd never been so out of shape in my life, but I wanted her to see that I valued my body and I loved my body enough to move it. I wasn't doing it because I wanted to lose weight or look good or whatever. I wanted to do it because I wanted to feel strong, and I wanted to, and I really did believe I really do believe that movement is so important for so many reasons. But you can tell people, especially kids, that all you want, but if they don't see you prioritizing it in their lives, then when they move into a place where you're no longer instituting it for them and all running them around to all their extracurricular activities, they're not going to know how to fit it into their daily life when they're a working adult, right? Or how to socialize and be active or whatever it is, because they won't have seen that and experienced it and felt how good it feels and how fun it can be to move your body with with other people. So yeah, I'm off on a tangent. I don't even remember what the question was.
No, on the contrary, it's great, and I love. I wanted to say I love what you said about because I personally find this is part of my definition of quiet leadership and confidence is leading by example, and that's what if we were not doing these things, how do we expect our kids to do that?
Yeah.
And that,
right?
Sorry,
Or our clients.
or yeah, exactly,
or
or anyone, yeah, and. So definitely, speaking, I know it's not what it's a different topic, but yeah, our kids can be our teachers, and they can be the catalyst making us a better version of ourselves. But going back to the original question, and you started with it, how helping them through the process, and you mentioned all that. So once they start working with you, and they do the things that you mentioned, what's the I don't want to say the end result, like what's next? Because it's never ending, I know, but what's next?
It is never ending. And I think that's the thing, right? Like it evolves as, we encounter all sorts of different things in our lives. So whether that's some kind of physical challenge, whether it is a loss or a change of situation in some way, there can be so many reasons why we need to adapt. And I think that that's the key, right? Like it is, first of all, there's no shortage of information out there around health and wellness. In fact, it's totally overwhelming and often contradictory, right? So I think, how I can support people on an ongoing basis is it's not like necessarily like we need to work together for forever, right? But there might be periods of time where you come back around where it's like, oh, I've had a child, or I've changed a job, or I'm living in a different city and my life has changed and I'm not sure how to adapt, or I don't quite know what physical health looks like for me in this stage of my life. But also too, like that change when you know all these things that you could do, should do, want to do, but knowing that you can't change everything at the same time, like it's not realistic, it's not sustainable, and not even knowing where to start. Sometimes, like when we talk about making this series of small sustainable changes, it's like where I start might be different from where you start, is different from where my dad starts, is different from, where a 20-year-old starts. Like, and it's not even just about the age and stage of life. It's about, what are our goals? What are our priorities? What do we love to do? What's important to us? Why do we want to do it? And then figuring out, okay, where do I start? What do I start with? What's first? What's the first step for me? This didn't work. How can we try it again in a new way, right? And so just having somebody in your life, and some people are so fortunate because they actually have this built into their community, about what it could look like, and you see possibility all around you of what it looks like to be healthy in different stages of your life or different circumstances. But if we don't have that built into our life, then it can be really helpful to connect with somebody who can just ask you the right questions to help you figure out where's the best place for you to start. How can we start? How can we fit that into your life in a way that adds to it, not creates more stress or more tick boxing, or right? Like, yeah, none of us need more of that.
Exactly. And this is key to meet the clients where they are at and customize and personalize based on their lifestyle and what works for them. I love that. It's not intimidating and it's not overwhelming. I love it. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for sharing your story. And didn't mention that early in the second question when you shared your story. I wanted to say that's an awesome, like, I want to commend you for like where you were at and then how things switched around. So the self-awareness and the switch. So you could have easily stayed that way. And that even gives hopes and inspiration for other people, including myself, when it comes to physical, that you don't have to be like born like that. You can shift and change and adapt at any point. Like if I put my mind that I want to now focus on physical, I can start tomorrow. And it's not too late. So thank you.
It's never too late.
Yeah. All right. I asked if anyone has any questions for Alexia, so we'll wait. Meanwhile, I want to ask you two light questions. Any recommendations on resources, books you read, you enjoy, podcasts, anything that you love to share with us?
Mm-hmm. I'm always a bit hesitant to recommend specific resources because of what I was saying. I find that there's a lot of resources out there in the health and wellness domain that might work for one person, but they might not work for you. And then when it doesn't work for you, it can be really discouraging. Either that, or it is this whole program that you're supposed to follow, and it's maybe not sustainable, or it doesn't bring you joy. Or it feels really restrictive, or whatever it is. But if it isn't a good fit for you, then it can actually, I think, be not
backfire.
Yes,
yeah.
Exactly. But there are a couple of books maybe that I'll recommend. One is that I listened to recently was Atomic Habits by James Clear.
Yeah.
And I like this book because, I mean, even if you don't read the whole thing, there's, I think, some interesting things, just understanding around how to form healthy habits. And that's really foundational, right? So regardless of what that looks like in your life, but understanding kind of how to do it in sustainable ways. So I think that's a book of value. There's another book called The Ripple Effect by Dr. Greg Wells. He's a Canadian, and I like this book because it really focuses around the ripple effect of making changes in each domain and then how that affects the others. So how the way that we eat, the way that we sleep, or the way that we move affects our sleep, but how we sleep affects what we eat and our ability to recover well from movement, right? So I like that book a lot as well. There's not a lot of things that I mean, I think you know this, but I love Brené Brown's podcast, Unlocking Us, because it's really about, I think about mental, emotional, and spiritual health and sort of understanding that from a holistic point of view. But there aren't really any particular ones that I subscribe to, or follow on a consistent basis. So I pull on a lot of resources. But I just want to say one thing. So much about health and wellness is actually listening to ourselves and listening to our bodies and being really honest with ourselves around what we need. So if nothing else, maybe this will offer some value to people, but I start my day now asking myself 3 simple questions. What does my body need today? What does my mind need today? And what does my soul need today? And then I plan my day around prioritizing those things. And they can be so small. Today, for my mental health, I really need to get some things off my checklist. I really need to clean the bathroom. Like, it sounds kind of ridiculous, but it's something that's weighing on my mind and it's taking up mental space, right? This morning, I was like, I need to get outside. And for me, often getting outside means moving my body. So it's like the physical and the spiritual together. And even if I wanted to throw it in there too, in terms of my like social emotional health, like this is fuel for me, right? Like feeling like maybe my story, my struggles, my challenges, and the knowledge and experience that I've gained through that might make a difference for somebody else. Like that to me is a sense of contribution and connection, right? And so they can be really seemingly small things, but just starting there, like, what does my body need today? What does my mind need today? What does my soul need today? And then planning the rest of your day around fitting those little things in. But just remembering that anything is better than nothing. And it can be so seemingly small, but if it sparks joy, if it creates connection, if it makes you feel good in your body or in your soul or whatever it is, then it's worth it, right? Because you just keep taking care of yourself in all those ways every day. And over time, that makes a massive difference.
Love it. I love these three questions. I'll start asking myself these questions. So thank you. I do something similar, maybe without breaking it down to three questions, but yeah, I start day with the intention and journaling, and yeah. But this is a great addition to my morning routine. You mentioned the books you mentioned. It was for me interesting because usually people assume if you're into health and wellness, you're going to recommend health and wellness books. And I agree with you. It's less about that and more about the mindset. And like you said, the habits. And I read the Atomic Habits. I love it. So I know what you're talking about. Because even if you have all the information about how to do each exercise, everything, and if you don't have the habit, it wouldn't work. And I love the ripple effect, which I didn't read, but I love the idea that small things will affect bigger things and it's all integrated. I will definitely read that book. So thank you. Last question before we leave is how can people get hold of you, get in touch with you?
You can find me on Instagram at alexia.gillespie. And you can find me at Strong Healthy Kids, and or both if that resonates with you. My messaging in with Strong Healthy Kids is very similar to my approach to health coaching. Really just supporting kids to be healthy and well in every aspect of their lives and helping them thrive. Something I care really deeply about. So yeah, or Facebook, same thing. Alexia Gillespie or at Strong Healthy Kids.
Awesome. Thank you. You're like me, available everywhere. I'm open to connections in any channel. Thank you so much for this amazing session. I have a feeling I'm going to connect with you more and talk more because we have fascinating stuff to chat about. So thank you for coming. Really appreciate it. And I want to thank the participants for joining. Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Loved it. And if you're interested for future sessions, please subscribe on the website so you get the latest information or updates about when the next event. Actually, the next event I just found out this morning. I confirmed with the guest speaker. It will be on the 5th of October at 10 a.m. So it's a Monday, 10 a.m. similar to now. It's going to be on, I'm not sure exactly what, but the person is a meditation expert. So I think that will be interesting and building on what we just discussed. So it's still in that wellness umbrella. And like Alexia mentioned, I'm available on all social channels. Please connect with me, drop me a line. If you're curious about my life coaching, please reach out. You can book a complimentary coaching session to have a feel of how, if that works for you or not. So don't hesitate to do that. And have a lovely day. And we'll hopefully see you in the next video cast. Oops, sorry, closed the window by mistake. All right. So thank you, everyone, and bye-bye.